Well, Phoenix did not disappoint in its first race as the Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series Championship 4 site. It it definitely was a great start to the weekend. Hello guys, I'm Brian Hummel here, and today we're going to discuss the truck race. Of course, it just concluded over on FS1, and Sheldon Creed was your champion this season in a very surprising fashion because he did not have the best truck all night. He was running about fifth. He was about third or fourth of all the championship drivers all night. Of course, late in the race there was a caution which helped him out. Um, Basically, the whole race was dominated by Brett Moffitt and Zane Smith, and if you look at it, those two probably were, again, they were the trucks to beat, but Brett Moffitt was the clear-cut truck to beat. He was just phenomenal all race, and unfortunately, the storyline, it's the same thing for him as it's been all year. He has just had bad luck all around. Of course, he had an uncertain future entering this race. They don't know if GMS is going to keep him. He's got his ride over at R Motorsports. Maybe he moves up to the Xfinity for a full schedule. Things are still up in the air for him right now. So obviously he entered here with a lot of urgency, wanting to win this championship. And not to mention, he really doesn't have the sponsorship backing. I mean, Plan B has picked up a lot of races for him. I know there were a few races he had a blank truck. So this was very high stakes for him to be losing. And of course, he won the stage. He was about 3 seconds ahead, 5 laps to go. The announcers are like, this is his championship. He's going to win it. And, they were really hyping that up. They said Grant Enfinger doesn't have time to catch him. Nobody has time to catch him. Wouldn't you know it, they jinxed it, and the caution came out with 3 to go. Cram spun. I don't exactly know what happened with Cram. I would say he just spun on his own, but I think he got tapped and just went around. I don't think there's any malicious intent, and I didn't see the full thing, so I can't make that accusation. But it, of course, led to an overtime in the truck race, which, of course, led to Brett Moffitt's frustration. You gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm just paraphrasing there. Basically, he's like that on the radio. They came down to a decision. Do we pit for tires? Do we stay out? And Phoenix is one of those tracks where fresh tires will benefit you in the late stages of a race. But when you're in first, here's the thing. Regardless of what he did, if he had pitted, you could say he should have pitted for fresh tires. If he had pitted, the guys behind him would have stayed out. If he had stayed out, the guys behind him would have pitted. It's a lose-lose. You're essentially a sitting duck no matter what you do in that situation. And Brett Moffitt and Grant Enfinger as well, they both decide, hey, let's stay out. Ben Rhodes, Sam Mayer also stayed out with them. Of course, it was interesting because really none of them were able to get a launch on that restart when we got going. So Sheldon Creed, Zane Smith both pitted for tires. Now they come back, they got 4 fresh, they line up about 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere in that range. And that restart, much like the initial start of the race, was hectic. I would have to say I counted about 6 wide entering turn 1. Everyone was down on the apron trying to make passes. Sheldon Creed was down there. Zane Smith was down there. It was crazy. It was wild. It was a fantastic race. And I'm telling you, for the naysayers who have said that Homestead was the main home for a championship, I think tonight, based on the truck race, it got a run for its money at the end of the day. But of course, Sheldon Creed gets the lead. You saw Ben Rhodes basically latched on the bumper of Brett Moffitt. Sam Mayer would not push Grant Enfinger. And really, the odds were against Grant Enfinger to begin with. You knew those 3 GMS trucks and, of course, Sam Mayer and Tyler Ankrum there. You knew that they were going to do everything they could to keep him behind them. Of course, Ankrum really wasn't in the picture, but Sam Mayer was at the end, and you knew those guys were going to do whatever it took to keep the 98 behind him. So, at the end of the day, there really was no fight there. Nothing that Enfinger could do. I mean, Ben Rhodes did the best he could to stay on the back bumper of Moffitt and maybe force him up the track, but at the end of the day, here's the difference, though. If something went down, here's the difference, and I've been incredibly hard on Ben Rhodes for the last week. The difference is you're not in the playoffs. You really can't. You can't be driving competitors running for a championship up the track. If you're running for the championship and you're in the championship with your teammate, that's a different story. But again, you can't fault Ben Rhodes for this here. He was being a good teammate. He really didn't do anything wrong to my knowledge. It was, again, just Sheldon Creed. I mean, this is a track that's got like 5, 6, 7 lanes you can run. And Sheldon Creed took advantage of that and got out front. He went on to win the championship. Zane Smith came home in second. I believe Enfinger finished just ahead of Moffitt. And you gotta feel for Brett Moffitt. He led that entire race just about, with the exception of Stage 1. Stage 1 was led by Zane Smith, but Stage 2, they came out, they seemingly made all the right adjustments. They were there, they were fighting. And you just gotta feel for him. That was brutal. I mean, you don't like losing him like that, and especially in overtime. But again, it's a lose-lose situation. If he had pitted, everybody would have stayed out, and that would have really put Brett Moffitt at a disadvantage. Even if he drove all 6 lanes getting to the front, it's just been the story of their year. That they've had trucks that could win races, but they haven't finished the job. I thought maybe this race would be different. It turned out it wasn't. But at the end of the day, Sheldon Creed, he had 5 wins this year. You can't say he didn't deserve this championship. You win 5 races, you win probably the most of any Truck Series regular. In a way, you earned that championship. I mean, granted, Brett Moffitt earned it based on this race and this format. He just wasn't in the right place, and he wasn't there at the right time, and he was a sitting duck at the end. It's just typical racing on these kinds of tracks, and it's unfortunate for someone like Brett Moffitt, again, who's fighting for a job next year. And of course, he's fighting to move up the ladder again. I believe he stated that at the beginning of the playoffs. He's here to try to move up the ladder. But hopefully he'll land back with GMS next year. I think, but I would also say the problem is he should have landed back with Hattori Racing, but that didn't work out either. So hopefully something comes up for Brett Moffitt. He really is a talented race car driver. He just needs a good seat and someone willing to take a chance on him. And hopefully it'll take him pretty far. So my thoughts on the season, it was a good year, honestly. It really was. Obviously the bounty on Kyle Busch was pretty interesting. I found myself paying attention to the trucks a little bit more than the Xfinity Series in some cases, and it was a good year. I mean, just GMS dominated it. There's no other way to say it. I mean, they ran a great year, and Sheldon Creed had a great season, and they did, honestly, and I'm gonna say it probably the entire weekend, they did an excellent job. NASCAR did an excellent job. I know a lot of people bash them for how they've handled some things. They handled this very well with the COVID thing. Just the fact that they could get all 23 truck races in, all 33 Xfinity races in, and they're going to get all 36 Cup races in. It's nothing short of miraculous with how late. And not to mention, we're ending it on the same weekend it was scheduled. The fact that they made this happen says a lot about how hard they've worked. It shows a lot. Um, and it really wasn't tainted. I mean, in a way, it just opened up, there could be people, again, like with the NBA and the ball and stick sports that resumed, many people said these championships are tainted because they're COVID championships. It essentially was two months off because of the shutdown, and then they come back, and they're essentially a brand new team with no injuries and whatnot. You can't fault, you can't really say this was tainted. I wouldn't even say NASCAR this season was tainted. I would say it was more given a different perspective and a different challenge because they had all these double headers that came up. They had all these midweek races. I think it opened up a new challenge, and on top of it, they didn't have practice since they've come back from COVID. The only practice was that Indianapolis road course one because it was a new track. So basically it was a new track orientation. But at the end of the day, it presented new challenges. I think it really showed you who the best of the best are. And you don't get to see that very often. It gets to show you who the best crew chiefs are. I think it was a crew chiefs type of year. Because just looking at it, I mean, it was based on the setup. And it also showed that these drivers, it showed the skill of these drivers because it essentially was a spec race. You didn't have a weekend to prepare. I think it showed the best drivers, and I think it showed the best crew chiefs, and ultimately it showed the best pairings of both. So I think it was really a challenge this year, and I liked it. It opened up a new challenge. You can't say it's tainted, but I would say it opened up a new perspective. It opened up a new challenge of how to do things and how things went this year. Anyway, we want to thank you for watching our Truck Series Championship post-race here. I guess you could call it a post-race here. We will have an announcement soon. I did promise one this week. I promise you it will be soon. Be sure to like or dislike our video here. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Click on the bell so you know when our videos come out. I don't know how much of the Xfinity race I'm going to be able to catch tomorrow, but I'm going to do my best to catch all of it. Saturdays are usually a little hectic for me, but we will for sure. There's one thing for sure, regardless of how much of the race I catch, we will have a championship video out here on YouTube. And that, of course, will be our way of recapping the season, much like we did here. And, of course, be sure to subscribe to our partners over at Heartland Spirit. Of course, their podcast, the Canteen Podcast, is out every single Friday tonight, usually at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, or 6:15 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, 6 o'clock on Spotify. So be sure to tune in for that, and we will have some news very soon. I promise you I didn't forget about it. It was just a busy week, and I had to sit down with the guys I was going to work with and work out some stuff. So I had to sit down with a few people. So I promise you we will have something real soon for you here on SCN. Until then, guys, goodbye everyone.